Illegal migration, although the government seems to be blind to it, is a real problem for Poland. Ordinary citizens recognize this, and today they took to the streets across Poland to protest against the flood of illegal migrants into our country. The protest was co-organized by soccer fan groups, who made their opinion of Donald Tusk's government very clear. Białystok. Szczecin. Warsaw. Protests against illegal migration took place in almost 100 Polish cities. The border for mass immigration, especially uncontrolled immigration, must be closed. We currently have a huge number of immigrants in Poland. No one knows exactly how many, because the Polish state does not keep a single register. There is no proper supervision of who is staying in Poland. Poles are not fooled by government propaganda and recognize both the hybrid attack on our eastern border and the smuggling of migrants from the west. We were at the western border in Zgorzelec and saw how it all usually happens. Our people take them from the Germans, from German police officers. Our border guards take them and transport them deep into Poland. That is why they are now expressing their strong opposition. There is support from young people, from sports fans, and together we are a force and a source of wisdom, and that is already a serious force. Stop migrants, stop Muslims. We are also against this, especially us as women. I, as a woman, am against this because I fear for my daughter, for my granddaughter. The organizers of the protests emphasized that Western Europe, which for years pursued an open-door policy for migrants from Africa and the Middle East, has learned its lesson the hard way. And we, having learned from this experience, cannot repeat these harmful actions. We know that terrible crimes are being committed in many places in Western Europe. Stabbings, robberies, rapes. We in Poland want to live safely. The driving force behind the protests was the soccer fan movement. In defense of Poland's security, fans of clubs that normally fight each other stood shoulder to shoulder. Because we may not like each other, we may differ. But when it comes to matters of the country, matters of Poland, soccer fans speak with one voice. However, there were some incidents. Extremely left-wing militias appeared in Warsaw and tried to disrupt the peaceful demonstration. Among the left-wing activists was Katarzyna Augustynek, known as Grandma Kasia, who did what she always does, which is cause trouble. Her street comrades from Antifa also added their 2 cents. And when they couldn't come up with any arguments in their conversation with our reporter, they simply attacked him. The protests are justified. Germany keeps sending migrants it cannot cope with to Poland. This week, public attention was drawn to a certain gentleman, dressed in a distinctive manner, who kept trying to enter our country, but failed each time due to the effectiveness of the border defense movement. If there are photos from a few days ago from the border town on the other side, in this particular area, of this particular man, or a man who is dressed the same way and everything points to it, if he is being pushed to the Polish side, then how are we to interpret this? What we are currently seeing on our western and eastern borders is unfortunately only a prelude. In the European Union, a migration pact will come into force in mid-2026, forcing member states to accept illegal migrants or pay for not accepting them. It is clear that everything is just a lead-up to the Migration Pact, when the European Union and the European Commission will take over responsibility for it, and then it will be done by completely different hands. Someone else will be the face of it. Protests and marches against illegal migrants have taken place all over Poland. When the state fails to act, Polish people mobilize themselves from the bottom up. The first example of this was the border defense movement, and now soccer fans are taking matters into their own hands. In 2015, the civic platform lost power precisely because of the issue of illegal migration. There are many indications that if the government does not change its policy, this scenario may repeat itself after 10 years. Another nighttime massive Russian attack targeting Ukrainian cities and civilians. Drones fell in Odessa, among other places. They were Iranian drones. We already recognized them. We were lucky. Everything shook. There was an explosion, but half of the apartment survived, and we were unharmed. Last night, air raid sirens could be heard across almost the whole of Ukraine. The Russians sent hundreds of drones and missiles. There are more dead and wounded. Between strikes, we had a few minutes of silence. That was our chance to escape to safety. We heard a woman screaming under the rubble, but there was nothing we could do. Kiev was also attacked. Shelling civilian targets is a deliberate tactic of Putin's criminals to intimidate Ukrainians and force them to surrender through public pressure. But no one here thinks about that, even though the Russians' criminal air raids are becoming more frequent and making life difficult, forcing people to evacuate and spend night after night in shelters or tunnels of the Kiev metro, which provide a sense of security when sirens and explosions can be heard in the city. 6 months ago, we used to come here rather rarely, maybe once a month. But now, we sleep and hide here 2 or 3 times a week. Ukraine has also attacked enemy territory. The result is dozens of trains stopped and air traffic suspended, including at Moscow airport. In the background, there is an expectation that Russia will be forced to make peace by Ukraine's Western partners, primarily the United States. For several days now, Ukraine has also had a new government led by Yulia Sviridenko. The renewed Ukrainian government must audit all agreements and treaties with partners in the field of defense and defense production in order to fulfill the agreements 100% in the interests of Ukraine. There will also be new agreements with the United States of America that will strengthen Ukraine's position and require changes in diplomatic relations with America. The United States and Donald Trump are clearly changing their attitude towards Putin's Russia. The American president has given Moscow 50 days to end its criminal war. Otherwise, he will impose prohibitive tariffs and sanctions on the country. The United States will also arm Ukraine more heavily.
Well, at the end of 50 days, if we don't have a deal, it's going to be too bad.
Should Zelensky get more aggressive?
Yeah, the tariffs are going to go on and other sanctions go on.
The Donald Trump administration has one goal, and it is unwavering: to bring an end to the bloody conflict.
I want to stop the killing of thousands of people a week. I want to stop the killing. I want the killing to stop in the Ukraine.
Due to Russia's massive night attack on Ukraine, Polish and Allied fighter jets stationed on Polish territory were scrambled. Before 7 a.m., the alert was called off. Donald Trump stops the bloodshed in Syria. After long and difficult negotiations led by the U.S. administration, Israel and Syria have announced a ceasefire. I call for a complete ceasefire by all parties to the conflict. Everyone must comply. I believe that we will be able to work together and overcome this crisis. Over the past week, there have been bloody clashes in southern Syria on ethnic and religious grounds. Clashes between Druze and Bedouins, joined by Syrian government forces and later also the Israeli army, have resulted in over 500 deaths. The de-escalation of hostilities in Syria is supported by 2 key points of this agreement. Firstly, the demilitarization of southern Syria, south of Damascus, and secondly, an issue of great importance to the Israelis, namely the protection of Druze followers, who in recent weeks have been systematically murdered by Islamic radicals in Syria. As it turns out, the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli government have taken the Druze under their protection. American diplomacy has brought everyone to order, at least for now.
Oh, and we've made a tremendous commitment there to stabilize Syria, and our special envoy, Ambassador Barrack, is leading that. And of course, we know of that escalation. Clearly, we've been involved in addressing it.
The Israeli-Syrian conflict has been resolved, and stabilization forces have been deployed to the war-torn areas of southern Syria. Our task is to maintain stability and security in areas where different ethnic groups are fighting each other. We are committed to protecting civilians, especially children, and with God's help, we will succeed. The Middle East is a powder keg, but in recent weeks alone, the U.S. administration has managed to extinguish many fires. Iran and its nuclear ambitions have been pacified. Israeli hostages released from Hamas are returning home. Trump has visited Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, offering them American weapons and technology. And now a ceasefire has been negotiated in Syria. Here, Trump himself is the guarantor. However, he is so unconventional. He acts very transactionally, realistically, as evidenced by the Middle East. Trump, through his personality, is able to stabilize the situation. I'm not saying that he will solve all the problems that have accumulated over the centuries, but at least he will guarantee some kind of stability. Of course, it is difficult to talk about peace in the Middle East because it is a long and complicated process. But there is a lot of positive news, such as the return of Israeli hostages kidnapped by Hamas almost 2 years ago.
We got most of the hostages back. We're going to have another 10 coming very shortly. And we hope to have that finished pretty quickly. And Steve Witkoff has been fantastic. He's done a great job.
Trump is effective. In the end, he brings about a ceasefire. There are fewer casualties, and importantly, Trump, in the case of Israel, shows that he does not have his favorites, that America's interests can be aligned with pro-peace and simplification measures, and that this can be coordinated in some way. He also shows strength. Recently, for example, the Israeli Prime Minister had a very unpleasant conversation with Donald Trump when Israeli troops shelled the only Catholic church in the Gaza Strip.
Committed to reinforcing your right to self-defense, and whether it's new capabilities, that defense, or lasting peace, we look forward to working together even more. So, Mr. Minister, thank you for being here.
Syria also has a chance for peace. What happens in the coming months after the overthrow of dictator Bashar al-Assad will be crucial. Will the Syrians, now that they are no longer under this protectorate or agreement with Iran or Russia, be willing to enter into a favorable political agreement that will somehow open Syria up as a country, that will be supported by Western countries? It seems that this is the key that would currently be a good direction for lasting peace. Donald Trump makes it clear that he is open to talks with Iran, Syria, or any other country that wants peace in the region. It's peak season at Polish airports. We fly a lot and in different directions. That's why this morning's news rightly caused quite a stir. Due to a failure of the IT systems of the Polish Air Navigation Services Agency throughout the country, there are currently serious difficulties in performing aircraft takeoffs. Landing operations are currently proceeding according to procedures. A failure at the worst possible moment. For passengers, this meant uncertainty and waiting to see how long the flight would be delayed or whether it would take off at all. The situation was quickly brought under control at Warsaw-Chopin Airport, but other airports experienced disruptions for most of the day. With this type of failure, we are dealing with a snowball effect, meaning the delays accumulate, and the biggest ones are likely to occur in the evening or late evening. The services got involved, but in the end, it turned out to be a malfunction. After applying the necessary procedures, the basic traffic management system was restored. The reason for the temporary problems was a malfunction, which was immediately fixed. Let's hope there will be fewer such malfunctions in the future, because today's one could have meant a change of plans or cancellation of travel for thousands of people. Meanwhile, for the Polish Air Navigation Services Agency, this is yet another serious crisis. At the end of June, the head of this important institution resigned from her position at the Ministry of Infrastructure. She did so without consulting Minister Dariusz Klimczak, who oversees the institution. What's more, she did so without giving a reason. Surprisingly, a few days later, Magdalena Jaworska-Maćkowiak withdrew her resignation. I think this move means that there is an unhealthy atmosphere between the president and the rest of the staff, and such an entity, such an institution, cannot function in an unstable manner. Safety should be the key issue. Unfortunately, this is also a mixed bag. According to information obtained by Republica's investigative journalist Piotr Nisztor, the Polish Air Navigation Services Agency has entered into a questionable contract for the flight testing of navigation equipment in Lithuania. The aim is to check the operation of ground navigation equipment using an aircraft. The institution signed a contract with a company owned by, wait for it, a Russian with a British passport. Bringing in a company with questionable roots, with Russian roots, is simply dangerous. And at this point, the relevant services, intelligence and counterintelligence services, should verify such contracts. The company carried out the task at the airport in Vilnius, even though it was not in the contract. 6 months later, a DHL plane crashed there. Whether these two events were related in any way is at first glance at least worth considering, worth saying that it needs to be investigated. According to our information, this matter is being investigated by the Lithuanian prosecutor's office. Failures, questionable contracts, and chaotic decision-making. All of this shows the extent of the crisis currently facing the Polish Air Navigation Services Agency. We only see chaos. We only see situations that absolutely should not happen, especially since we have a hybrid war here, of course in the East. There are many indications that the institution that should guarantee efficient operation sometimes operates without a plan, and such management simply portends a lot of turbulence.